This is a presentation of NorthEast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Keith Engel, and you're watching Start It Up here on NorthEast Streaming Sports live on Roku and a couple other destinations. I'm here with my co-host this morning, Mac McGrath, and Jamie Paggs, the Philly sports guy. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning, Keith. Good morning, Pat.
Hope you guys enjoyed a restful Labor Day weekend and pouring down rain. I'm sure we all probably experienced that yesterday looking at the map last night.
Nope, not me.
No rain for you.
Well, it looks like it's about to start any second now.
Yeah, we're going to get some more today. We got some flood watches. And fall's here. It's only going to be 60 all day. So fall's here in the Northeast. Anyway, enough with the weather. This wasn't supposed to be a weather show, but we turned into it some days. So anyway, a lot of news. A little bit of a quiet Monday other than some Major League Baseball scores. A couple significant events there that we'll chat about. Get into the NFL, a little bit of college football with the Clemson facing Georgia Tech last night. Some boxing news, some sad boxing news that Mac will talk about. Maybe a little NBA. We got the I got to fix my I got to fix my corrections. I have to correct myself from yesterday in the U.S. Open as I was covering the fourth round games. We had some results and the quarterfinal matchups today, and we'll see where we go from there. Let's jump directly into the Major League Baseball races. So Monday had a washout, not a full schedule, but some interesting games. The Yankees continue that modest 2-game winning streak that they're on and beat the Twins 5-2. The most notable news here, Aaron Judge goes deep again for his 54th home run. Now just 7 home runs behind Roger Maris for the Yankee and American League record. And again, depending on who you are, and maybe how old you are, the real record for home runs in a Major League Baseball season. He's actually ahead of Maris's pace, so it looks good for Aaron Judge right now, but let's not try to jinx him too much. He has carried this team, as much as you can be carrying a team that's been in free fall as much as they have. Without him, God knows where they'd be. So he continues an amazing season here. Any comments, Mac? I know Jamie won't have any.
Well, I mean, it's awesome that, Aaron Judge is doing what he's doing, chasing Roger Maris. And, we're going to have a new record by the end of the year.
Well, now we jinxed him.
Yeah. Yep. And it's, the good thing about it is that there's nobody hitting behind him at all because this Yankee team really stinks out loud except for him. So they're going to be able to continue to pitch for him.
I think
so that's
I made the mistake of saying Pags would have nothing to say about this.
I think Rizzo's been doing pretty well too, guys. So.
Well, he's been hurt again, and since he came back, he struggled a bit. He's important to this team, though, hugely important to the infield defense, leadership, and also protecting Aaron Judge when he is playing well. We need Stanton to get it together too, because it seems to take him. He's 0 for 3 again yesterday. He's down to 214. Every time he gets hurt, it seems to take him 4 weeks to get ready to, get back in the groove, and then he gets hurt again, which has always been my issue with Stanton. So anyway, some other good news. Taillon pitched really well yesterday, I thought, which is important because they've had some injuries in that starting rotation, but the starters haven't been a problem. Herman has pitched up and pitched pretty well since Cortez has been down. I think that the relief pitching needs to get better, and Holmes had a good 9th inning yesterday, a couple of strikeouts, then a clean 9th for his 19th save. So
did you mean Tiant? Not Taillon, right?
Taillon, James Taillon.
Taillon, okay, got it.
Yeah. So the Yankees they do maintain a 5-game lead over the Blue Jays. Over the Rays, and the Blue Jays are 5.5 back, who also won yesterday. The Blue Jays now are the team that is hot in the East, having won 5 in a row. They win 7-3 yesterday over the the suddenly cold Orioles, who have lost like 3 in a row as well, they're falling 4.5 games back in the wild card race. Gausman gets the win here, his 11th win for the Blue Jays. And this is a doubleheader, so you're going to hear another score here in a little. I'll skip through it because this time there's not that many scores. In the second game of that doubleheader, the Blue Jays win, 8-4. Bo Bichette hits 3 home runs in this game for the, again, Red Hot Blue Jays. Jose Barrios, who's been one of the bigger disappointments, as I've said a couple of times, does get his 10th win, but his ERA remains over 5. He's a guy.
Did you just say Boba Fett hit a home run?
Not Boba Fett, no. Boba Fett. Boba Fett if the Boba Fett hit 3 home runs.
I was going to say this is a whole. That's like those commercials that we've been seeing lately, where you're switching channels too much. It's like, Star Wars was in there.
Well, if I could fit a Star Wars reference in, we've done pretty well. Very good.
Yeah.
To be clear, Bo Bichette, son of Dante Bichette, former Rocky and Brewer, hits 3 home runs, as I said. He had a slow start this year, but he's really come on, and this Blue Jay team is loaded. Watch out. Where did I leave off? I got to go back up because I skipped down there. The Red Sox, they get cooled off a little bit by the Rays. They stopped their winning streak, and they win 4-3. They stay 5 games behind the Yankees, as I said, and this is going to be an interesting race. The Yankees still have some games with the Rays and the Blue Jays, so they need to get right before those series start again. Hold on here 1 second. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Nope. The Rockies and the Brewers faced off yesterday, with the Brewers getting a 6-4 win in this game. It's trying to stay pace. I think they're now 7.5. Behind the Cardinals, probably not in very good shape in that division race, but 2 games behind the Phillies and the Padres in the wild card race. So the Brewers trying to hang in there and actually scored some runs yesterday, which is good for them. The Nationals on fire. They win their 3rd straight game yesterday, beating those Cardinals we just talked about. Anibal Sanchez, somehow still pitching in the major leagues. He gets his 2nd win yesterday. You look at this Washington staff, and I wonder how they win any games with him and Corbin getting thrown out there every 5th day. And I don't know. Jack Flaherty did return for the Cardinals after being injured. He did pitch 5 effective innings for St. Louis, which is good news for them, but they did lose the game 6-0. The Diamondbacks win again, 5-0 over the Padres. We've talked a lot about them. They've lost 3 in a row again. The Diamondbacks crawl within 4 games of 500 after being buried here at midseason. And while they're not going anywhere, they're certainly playing a spoiler down the stretch and playing some really, really good baseball, as we've talked about a couple of times in the last week. The White Sox under interim manager Miguel Cairo win again 3-2 over the Mariners, stop their win streak. Lance Lynn, who's been a huge disappointment as well this year, only 5-5. One of the reasons the White Sox are where they are. He does dominate in this game to carry the White Sox to the victory. Gonzalez gets the loss in this game. He's 10-13. And Hendricks does get his 30th save in this game for the White Sox. Hanging in there, somehow 2 games out of the Central. I think it's the battle of attrition in that AL Central has kept the White Sox barely alive on life support. The Astros send the Rangers to their 9th straight, if I'm not mistaken, their 9th straight defeat. They're really imploding here. The Astros win 1-0. Another great pitching performance there. For the Astros, the Rangers, Martin Perez gets his 6th loss against 10 wins. I should have traded Martin Perez at the trade deadline, got some value for him, but they did not do that. The Guardians get back to a 1-game lead and break that tie in the AL Central we just talked about, beating the Royals 6-5. The Angels win 10-0 over the Tigers. Ohtani again goes deep. As we said last week, he is the first Major League Baseball player ever with 30 home runs and 10 wins in the same season. Not even the great Babe Ruth ever did that. So that's quite an accomplishment for Ohtani.
He had 2 yesterday.
Hit 2 yesterday. Okay, missed one.
Did
And Mike
Willie
Trout
Mays,
were deep in the game as well.
didn't Willie Mays accomplish that too, Keith?
Willie Mays didn't do any pitching, so no.
Yeah, that's true.
He probably would have if he actually pitched any games, but he didn't. So Babe Ruth would be the only other contender really for this because he's the only guy who spent any significant time both pitching and hitting.
Right.
And he did not do it for all the home runs that he hit. If people don't realize how good a pitcher Babe Ruth was before he ever became the prolific home run hitter.
Yesterday, 105 or 106 years ago, he pitched a 2-hit shutout in the World Series.
I think he still holds a record for most consecutive scoreless innings in a World Series, if I'm not mistaken, too. I think like 19 and a half or something.
And still has the lowest ERA at 0.81 in the World Series.
Yeah, so the Babe he didn't look like an athlete in those little black and white photos, but he certainly was quite an athlete. And I often say, and younger people kind of look at me like there's something wrong with me, every athlete today, well, I don't care if it's NBA, boxing, hockey, baseball, they all should get down every night and say a little prayer to Babe Ruth because without Babe Ruth, these guys aren't making millions of dollars today, I can tell you right now.
He wasn't just a Major League Baseball star. He was a world star. That really is the one who made sports what it is today.
And basically,
and he's had the only candy bar that's lasted.
Right.
Excellent point.
Yeah.
And it's a good candy bar at that. Also, basically saved baseball after the 1919 Black Sox scandal. So, anyway, that's about Babe Ruth. We should talk about the news today, I guess.
Right.
Where did I leave off? I think I talked about that game. We'll get to the Dodger game last because the Mets and Pirates were rained out. They'll play.
That means Vogelbach, who looks like Babe Ruth, didn't get to have any at bats. Burrito Supreme did not get to do any bats.
He probably looks worse than Babe Ruth because at least Babe was wearing the baggy flannel uniforms then, so his physique didn't quite stand out as much as Vogelbach's does. So.
Yes, that is, and I love making fun of fat guys that are up in pro sports because they epitomize how tough it is to get up there. You got to imagine, like, I would love to have a beer with that guy, even though he's a Met, because I got to imagine that just the trajectory for him to get to the major leagues has been, that story is probably so much more interesting than like than like Aaron Judge, who has been like an athlete all of his life. Vogelbach is just, he's had, he's been eating his way to the major leagues, and that's.
Listen, the thing I took away from that comment was I'm glad you qualified it with fat guys who are in the major leagues because I was going to take offense there for a second. So.
Well, fat guys in any pro sports. I mean, just when you talk to them, they don't have it as simple. That means they have to do things a lot better than most other players. They have to have those tools have to be so much better to be able to get beyond.
Well, you had one, to stay on the chubby guy topic at least. The Phillies had a very colorful one in John Kruk, who wasn't the most physically gifted guy in the world, and he was a really good baseball player for quite some time.
Yep. Yeah. And I love the fact that he put in his contract that he needed a case of beer after every game.
Did he share, or was that all for him?
That was all for him. If every once in a while he'd give one away, but he'd be like, "Hey, listen, you got to get it in your own contract. You don't.
Right.
This is part of my pay."
Oh gosh! In the last game of the night, the Dodgers. I'm sure that the Dodger haters will probably latch onto this one somehow, even the fact that they've got 92 wins here, and we're not even a week into September. They lose 7-4 yesterday to the Dodgers. The Dodgers hit 5 home runs in this game. Logan Webb.
The Giants.
Excuse me.
The Giants hit 5 home runs.
The Giants, hit 5 home runs against the Dodgers, right, to snap an 8-game skid versus the Dodgers. And Logan Webb gets his 12th win here. in this game. And I'm sure there's one other update at least from this game that I probably have overlooked.
Joey Gallo went 1 for 4 with an RBI, hitting his 7th double of the year, going up to a very, a very lofty 167 batting average.
Lion, I'm telling you, he's going to have to really go on a tear to get close to that 180 mark we set for him here earlier.
No, but he's gonna definitely hit about 300 in the playoffs.
It's possible. Anything's possible. As John Sterling says, you see something new every night in baseball. So
Right.
which he's barely watching the game, so I don't know how he really knows that. But real quick, let's go through the standings real quick since we got a couple of minutes. The Yankees, as I said, with a 5-game lead over the Rays, a 5.5 over Toronto. Looking a little better, obviously, than it did yesterday. And the Orioles 10 games back in that American League East. The Central remains to be one of the closer races in the American League. 1-game lead for the Guardians over the Twins, and a 2-game lead over the White Sox. The White Sox, I thought, were playing such better baseball, but they're always 5-5 or 4-6 in their last 10 games, but they don't move a lot from 2 games behind. But I like the job Magakara is doing there, filling in for our favorite manager, Tony La Russa.
Yeah.
Who I think, Pags, you may not have been here yesterday. I mentioned he's out indefinitely with an undisclosed medical condition. So there's speculation that I'm kind of waiting for a lawyer to show up at my door was that he may be, away for 28 days or so. You can figure out what that might be about.
Well, I figured it's just cirrhosis of the liver.
Yeah, that might be the end stage. I don't know, but I'm really getting myself in deep with Tony La Russa. Hopefully, he doesn't watch the show.
Hey, you know what? I don't care because he's just. I like I said, I can't stand guys who think that they invented the game.
Well, I will say this: he didn't invent it, but he changed it for the worse, or started to with those A's teams. He started to change baseball much for the worst in my mind.
Let's put pitchers in on the at the 8th spot because I'm smarter than everybody else.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I never did figure that one out myself, but
yeah,
I don't know. The Mets in the National League East, they do continue to lead by a game. It's not like they've played horrendous baseball here. They've still got the second best record, obviously, in the National League, and I think the third best in all of baseball. But the Braves have just been on fire with 5 wins in a row again, 7-3 in their last 10. It's going to be quite a race between these two teams down the stretch here in September. The Phillies remain 11.5 back, but as we said, they still are in control of that, tied for the second and third wild card spots. And the Marlins have just imploded after what I thought might be a good second half for the Marlins. A sterling prediction by me there, about the halfway mark. The Cardinals maintaining that 7.5 game lead over the Brewers. The Brewers still relevant in the wild card race at 2 games behind those Phillies and the Padres. And the Padres are basically treaded water in my mind since the trade deadline. Now they've lost 3 in a row again, 19 games behind the Dodgers. And the Giants, who have rattled off 4 in a row earlier, are 26.5 games amazingly behind the Dodgers. Considering what we saw last year, I mean, the Giants are going to win 30 less games than they won last year, potentially. It's shocking, the turnaround there. And the Diamondbacks are a team that's surprising me. 8-2 in the last 10, and they're probably, I got to say, they're probably about 16-4 over their last 20. I'd have to look at that, but I'm just going to make a guess, given the ground that they've made up the last couple of weeks. Only 4 games under, but way back, 27.5. They are 7.5 games out of the wild card. Not undoable, but not likely.
Right.
So that's kind of an interesting. I like to watch teams that really finish well. It tells me something about their character. So I think maybe it's something to watch. And we talked about the wild card races already. And a little bit of other news. Not a lot of other news in baseball. We talked about Judge getting his 54th home run. The Red Sox reached a 1-year, $10 million extension with Enrique Hernandez, who was one of their free agent signings. I don't know if last year or the year before, but he's a nice little player, plays all around the field. But, that's just why the Red Sox are 9 games out of any kind of playoff consideration. I don't have a lot of other news except one note that I will make. Yesterday, baseball lost one of somebody who is a part of an important moment, not one of somebody that will roll off the tip of people's tongues when you mention his name or come to their mind when you mention his name. Mark Littell, who was a relief pitcher with the Royals and the St. Louis Cardinals, and gave up one of the biggest home runs in American League playoff history in 1976 when the Yankees, Chris Chambliss, ended the Yankees' long drought. At that time, it seemed long, and hit a home run to put the Yankees ahead of the Royals and into the World Series against the Reds that year. Great guy. He was one of the first interviews, maybe the second interview I did when I started doing some podcasting and doing this thing, and I watched myself and I was so nervous, so raw, and he was great. He's written a couple of books that I can tell you we talked about. And if you like baseball books, these are two great books. If I can find them here real quick. One was On the Eighth Day God Made Baseball, and then he followed up with Country Boy, Conveniently Wild, and they're full of great baseball stories about him growing up and his ascent to the major leagues, and then what actually went on in the major leagues. He was a fun guy, and I kept in contact with him after the interview, and a lot of fun, tremendous sense of humor, as a lot of these former major leaguers do. And we'll say rest in peace, and our thoughts go out, and our prayers go out to his family. He passed away after complications from heart surgery over the weekend, and this was not expected to be an issue, but at 69 years old, you never know. So our thoughts and prayers go out to Mark Littell's family, and we thank him for the entertainment he's given us with these books, his pitching. And he had a great sense of humor about giving up that home run to Chris Chambliss too. You always worry about doing an interview with a guy who's infamous for something like that, but he really had a lot of fun with it, and I give him credit for that. So I just wanted to get that out there, even though not a big name. To me, he's a big name because he really helped me get my feet under me doing what we're doing today, kind of. So
cool.
There you go.
Anything else you guys would like to cover in Major League Baseball?
Nope.
I
Nope.
think
You guys, kind of a quiet day other than scores, which obviously the games are the most important thing anyway, but we'll see. What else can we sneak in here before we take a break here? We get something quick, Pags?
Yeah, I do have something quick. Obviously, we haven't talked about hockey because there really hasn't been much going on with hockey. But last night, the women's team Canada beat the women's USA team 2-1 to win the World Cup gold medal. USA. They beat Canada earlier in this tournament, but was unable to do it for the gold. And USA comes away, Team Canada comes away with their third gold medal in just a little over 12 months because of the way COVID worked. They wound up having World Cup and then World Cup back to back, kind of, and then this was their third gold medal in 12 months.
Wow, congratulations to them. That's quite a feat.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and they beat Team USA. Team USA was doing a little bit of crying, saying, they flop around like flounders, and that, diving, that they should start calling diving in female games because they felt that really was the issue there, that they dove a couple and got a couple penalties, and they actually won on a power play goal. So,
well, it's the way we keep our reputation as ugly Americans, So,
well, that was stale crackers. I think a little bit of stale crackers there from one of the girls who lost this game. But I didn't see the game. I couldn't really tell you on how big it was. But I know, congratulations to Team USA to making it. Unfortunately, this happens to be their third loss in a row in the gold medal round.
Got to get over the top.
That's where the stale crackers come from, I can imagine.
I would think that it contributes to it for sure.
Yes.
So, As far as I know that we haven't gone over any signings in hockey. There really hasn't been anything worthwhile. Like notable names was Sam Gagne gets a contract from the Jets for under $1 million, and uh, you know goalie Jake Ettinger signs with the Stars for a 3-year, $12 contract. And what did I see? Phil Kessel signs a 1-year, $1.5 million contract. But we're going back now a couple of weeks. So if you don't know about any of this, then that's just because you're not following hockey. But they are getting ready to go to camp. As some of the Philadelphia Flyers have shown up to camp a little early to try to get a head start on their losing season that I expect to happen this year.
Even with their new coach.
Even with their new coach.
Hmm.
I will be very critical of the Philadelphia Flyers this year. As much as I will be rooting for them to try to win games, I expect that will go on a lot of deaf ears.
Yeah.
He does have a reputation for some quick turnarounds and, burning out quickly, but you don't think that'll happen here?
I think that it will not happen here. Correct. I don't think it has anything to be honest, I don't think that the problem with the Flyers have anything to do with the product on the ice or the coach.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Oh.
All right. Well, we got a little bit of news on the other side with the NFL and college football and a little bit of boxing news and some tennis. So actually, before we go to the break, why don't we touch on the boxing news, Mac? Over the weekend, for my generation anyway, a very famous fighter had passed away, I believe at the age of 78, Ernie Shavers.
And he came out, in the 70s when boxing was really at its best. I mean, he fought Larry Holmes. He fought Ken Norton. He fought all the great fighters at that time.
Ali, too, right?
Yeah, right. He fought Ali, too. So, I mean, it wasn't like he was in with a bunch of bums. He was a very talented, strong-willed man. He had no disrespect to George Foreman, but he had the hardest punch in boxing. So this guy will always be remembered as one of the great. He never made champion, but runner-up in that sport. And, you got to give it to this man. This man was really a man who was on a mission, who knew that, he had to beat these guys to become champion. And, it's too bad that he didn't. So, again, he's one of the premier boxers of that generation, even though he never did make champion.
Yeah, I do remember watching him as a kid, and I learned a lot because on the Glove Fish show last night with Frank and Jack, they talked a lot about Ernie Shavers, and they talked about the fact that he was very close to being world champion twice. When he fought Ali, he hurt him like in the second round, and Ali kind of faked him out.
Yeah,
he was really hurt, and Ali pretended to be hurt, and it kind of threw Shavers off, and he didn't really kind of try to finish him off. And Ali was really hurt in that fight, they said. And then later on, when he fought Holmes, he knocked Holmes down and never threw another punch really to try to finish him off in that round. Then Holmes recovered and beat him. So I guess Ernie Shavers had made a comment after that. So he says, I was actually kind of world champion, it seemed, for like 5 seconds.
Yeah. So, he, again, like I said, guys, very strong-willed, with that sleek, bald head of his. He was one of the greatest. You'd have to say he's one of the greatest of the 70s.
Fun to watch. He fought for like 27 years too. Some of those guys went on forever. It felt like in those days. So
I think George Foreman is the only one that fought longer than he did it that way. So
he took 10 years off though, so he had a little rest in between.
Yeah. So yeah.
So anyway, our thoughts go out to his family as well.
Right.
And, one of the great fighters. It was a different time for heavyweights then, right? It was a color. There was all kinds of fun matchups, as you mentioned. A lot of them. I remember Ron Lyle fighting Ernie Shavers, who were two great punchers, and
Foreman, Keith. I mean, they kept knocking each other down and kept getting up. So, incredible fighters.
Yeah, it was a fun time there. Now nobody even cares about the heavyweights, for crying out loud. It's amazing how times change. So
I don't necessarily
do a little comeback.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, you're talking Fury, you're talking some of the But
maybe the way it's covered, I guess is why because it's not as big a news. This was front page news years ago when Ali would fight and Frazier would fight. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it's a shame. Probably the MMA's hurt that a little bit too. So
you would think it would. So.
Right. Well, we'll take a quick break and we'll be back on the other side to talk some NFL and some college football and some U.S. Open tennis. So bear with us. We'll be right back.
Yes.
See right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, from Brooklyn. Hey, guess any.
This is a presentation of NorthEast Streaming Sports.
All right, welcome back for our second half hour here on NorthEast Streaming Sports. Started up. I'm Keith Engel with Mac and Pags for the Philly sports guy, who you just saw prominently in that commercial for
There's
the
a little
Philly
resemblance there, a little bit of resemblance.
Philly sports trip. Listen, Pegs, is that one long trip? Do they come home at all, or is that one trip from September till January?
I wish.
It's
You
looking
can
at
catch me up out on the road, just traveling. It's like the Madden bus. We just go from place to place.
That's what it would look like a little bit there.
Keith, maybe we should look into that, man. Maybe we should look to get on that.
Leaving for 6 months on a road trip.
Sure. Why not?
Well, I'll be looking for a fourth wife after that.
See, that's some of the benefits of not being married.
Yeah, my wife just said you too. So
definitely. A couple of college football notes I'm going to throw at the Pegs, I think, for the NFL here. We had a game last night, the last game of a long Labor Day weekend, went from Thursday to Monday night. The number 4 Clemson Tigers get off to a good start to their season, beating Georgia Tech, who is just atrocious, by the way. Again, Jeff Collins is going to be a lot of trouble this year at Georgia Tech. They get off to a good start, 41-10 in this game. really poured it on in the second half. DJU, because I'll never try to say his last name because it always hurts my tongue and people's ears. He played a little bit better yesterday. He was one of the problems for Clemson last year, their offense being as stagnant as it was. He goes for 209 yards and a touchdown last night. Nobody really stood out for Clemson on an individual standpoint, but they did play very, very good football on both sides of the ball. So good start for them to their season. And the ACC got off to a decent start, unlike the Pac-12, as we know, their disastrous weekend out there. A couple other pieces of news. Steve Scarsacian says he's not concerned about whether the Alabama Showdown defines the Longhorns' season this year. You better hope it doesn't, because you're going to get smacked down pretty good this Saturday, I'm guessing. And the Longhorns, I think, are not quite back. They're going to get Arch Manning next year, but they've got an unknown quantity in Ewers, who transferred in from Ohio State, I believe, to be their starting quarterback. And I think this team's going to struggle mightily. If they were to go 6-6, I think it would be a good season for Texas this year. They're ranked right now, but I think this team's going to have some trouble starting this week with the Alabama Crimson Tide. So I'm glad Steve doesn't think this will define their season, because if he thought it did, I'd be a little concerned. Yeah. And Mark Norvell, Florida State, head coach, says the Seminoles still need to keep improving after a huge win against LSU. I agree. Florida State, this is a pivotal year for Mike Norvell. He's under a lot of fire. It's his third season. Florida State has not played well since he's been there. They're off to a 2-0 start, but they beat who did they beat the first game? I can't remember now. Duquesne. They beat the first game.
Sister Mary the Blind.
Very close to that, yes. And they beat not a good LSU football team. If you watch the game Sunday night, Brian Kelly's initial LSU team is not going to be very good. He's got some work to do there. And so a win's a win, but they've got a lot of work to do. Florida State does too, before they get into their conference schedule for sure. Was there anything else?
What a difference a day makes. Doesn't it seem like just yesterday when LSU was beating Alabama for the national championship?
Yeah, and then, Ed Orgeron went off the rails, like to become Party Ed, and things went downhill fast.
See, that's what happens. He wins a national championship. He gets featured in the Blind Side, and next thing you know, he's playing with the little girls and taking a page out of what was that guy, the Jacksonville coach, Ohio State coach,
Urban Meyer.
That's him.
Urban Meyer. Yeah. I don't think Urban went quite as far as Ed went, at least as far as we know. He didn't. But Ed liked to take pictures of himself at the same time, which becomes a problem after a while. So
there you go.
So anyway, we'll get some big games coming up in college football, which we'll touch on later in the week for sure. And how about some NFL news? Pags, I'll let you lead the way there.
Sure. There's a number of stories in the NFL, as it is. We are just 3 days away from NFL kickoff with the Buffalo Bills and the Rams. Right now, the Bills are a 2.5-point favorite in LA. The first story that we see is Lamar Jackson is not focused on his extension. He's focused on the season moving forward. I'm sure that's just a lot of fodder just to make him seem like, hey, yeah, you need to pay me. Mitch Trubisky is the winner. He is the winner, and he is going to be the starting quarterback and listed as the co-captain for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see how well he does. They signed him, the old man on the side. Jason Peters is going to be a Dallas Cowboy this year with Tyron Smith. They take somebody who gets hurt, who was really old and not, on the downside of his career, and they add somebody else who's older and further down the downside of his career.
Another guy, I think, graduated just a year or two behind me, Jason Peters. I'm pretty sure.
That could very well be. I know that he's closer to my age than anything else, and it's a shame. I have a fondness for Jason Peters. He will be a Hall of Famer. However, every year that he continues to play is becoming more and more, how he's not going to become a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is a shame. Zach is out. They say still possible to start, but as of right now, he is still out and may not be ready for the Ravens in Week 1. I tell you, his mom's friends have got to stay away if he's going to get himself healthy. That's the problem there.
Wow.
That type of aerobics can be helpful in recovery, I think.
So here was something for Mac. They have decided that not Brian Dabble or whatever you call him, but offensive coordinator and former Eagles backup quarterback Mike Kafka will be the one calling the plays for the Giants. So good luck for him. I was always a fan of Mike Kafka just because he was always the third string quarterback on an Eagles team.
Oh my God, there we go again with that. No experience at all. Last game of the season, and they put him in there, and we know that was just them throwing the game. So.
Was it Mike Kafka?
Yes,
it wasn't Mike Kafka.
Who was it?
That was Sudfeld. It was Sudfeld. Stop with the crying already. It's 3 years now. 3 years of tears. Stop crying. That was Mike Sudfeld. So Mike Kafka, different guy.
Okay. First name's the same though. Mike.
Yes, the first name was the same.
Yes.
As I read this, as they announced Mitch Trubisky, Ben said Trubisky should be the guy. So maybe that was what brought them over the top on doing that. And the Rams have left Odell Beckham Jr.'s locker still standing.
Oh.
So whenever you're ready, you just come back. Come back home, please. We
They
want
left
you.
it as a memorial, or they actually want him back?
The Rams have left Odell Beckham Jr., including a nameplate at their practice facility in Thousand Oaks.
Yep.
So I guess whenever you're ready, come on back. Everybody else is is just talking about they're ready to go. And the special performance at the halftime on the Thursday show is they're getting an extra set of bats to go in. Ozzy Osbourne will be the halftime performance at the Rams and Bills.
Oh, not that kind of bat.
Not that kind of bat.
Wow,
he can't bite the head off of that bat. And if he can, there's something new that we got. That's going to be fun to watch.
How many guys do they need to hold Ozzy Osbourne up during this concert is what I want to know.
They don't need it anymore. They got the two things. They just put him on one of them wheelie things, and they just wheel him up there. But they have long arms so that they don't have to be seen.
Right.
Bring him out there like Hannibal Lecter. Jesus, good grief.
Exactly. It's interesting. I just watched that movie last night too, or 2 days ago. So, where they got him on the.
Oh, great movie. Great movie.
So, but go
ahead.
Yeah. So he's going to be the special act this Thursday. So stay tuned on Thursday night. Hopefully, I will be at where I'm supposed to be, so that I would be able to. I
was never like that. I was never like, just to see the halftime show that I'd watch the game. But this is something different, guys.
Oh, this is a train wreck. I got to be there myself. I mean,
crazy train.
Let's call it what it is: a crazy train wreck.
Yeah, crazy train wreck.
That'd be awesome.
Oh my gosh.
And that's really it. Like I said, everybody's got their fantasy picks. Stay tuned for this Wednesday when we combine the NFC East show and J&B Shop to do the first ever on live Northeast Streaming Sports, the first ever fantasy football draft.
How long is this show? 7 hours?
We're going to have probably 2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours.
Did you get a hold of Robert too? He's in that big fantasy.
I have not, but if we choose him, we got to get somebody else in there too. So
Okay.
we would need to have 8 because we can't have an odd number of 7.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Why, Keith? Are you interested?
What time is it? I'm doing I have a show of my own till 8:30.
Then no, that would mean that you are
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So, it'd be tough to combine all of the shows at once.
Yeah, it would be very hard. You're gonna have some logistical nightmare on your hands.
Yeah, because you guys are talking about college, we're talking about pro, and it would be a challenge in general. So, but
I'm in there picking Bryce Armstrong or Bryce Young as my quarterback.
There you go.
there we go. So, but yes, it's the first ever on Northeast Streaming Sports Live Fantasy Football Draft.
Nice.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Something to
be
look forward to
interesting
for
to say the
sure.
least.
One last note on NFL I'll bring up. Pete Carroll says the naysayers are nuts. He's looking forward to nothing but good stuff happening this year for the Seattle Seahawks.
Wow.
Well, he said that he has 2 number ones.
Yeah.
2 number 1 quarterbacks right there, and I believe him.
Yeah. If you put the numbers together, they're 11, which is probably about what it should be. But they say there's an old saying in football that if you have 2 starting quarterbacks, you have none.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's not a good sign. And plus, if their names are Geno Smith and Drew Lock, it's even worse.
Yes.
Well, I expect so. As I'm going to give a couple of quick tips for fantasy football. In your 8th or 9th round, or maybe even like a little early, like the 7th round, a good person to take at that point would be DK Metcalf, because I believe that he is going to take a little bit off of the page of Deebo Samuel and Cordarrelle Patterson and be the everything guy for the Seahawks, specifically in week 1. I would not be surprised that he takes on a much bigger role in week 1, and this game becomes more about DK Metcalf versus Russell Wilson in that first matchup between Denver and Seattle.
That's a good call. I could also see DK Metcalf getting himself traded off that team before the trade deadline as well.
Well, I tell you, that's going to be impossible. They are not going to trade him. They chose him over Russell Wilson.
Well, that's a good point.
He's gonna live and die with that team now. And I tell you, find out very quickly how much of a cancer he is. I said he was a cancer on this team. He's now the big tumor on this team.
Yeah.
Teams so often make the bad choice here. It's amazing. I don't think, you know what, though, even despite the DK Metcalf, I don't know that Russell Wilson could have continued with the Seahawks past. I think that they just outlived each other. The Pete Carroll-Wilson relationship, these things run their course. It took Brady 20 years, but it happened there too. So I think they had to go their own ways. And it's going to work out better for Wilson theoretically than it will for Pete Carroll. And
I to be honest, I think it's not going to work out for either one of these.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Broncos this year either. I don't have them making the playoffs myself.
There we go. See, I'm not the only one. The whole AFC West is overrated. Overrated.
I don't think the Chiefs are. I think Chiefs are underrated. I think
no. I think that the Chiefs are still the class of that division.
Yeah.
And I think that the Chargers may make the playoffs, but I do not think Denver's going to do it, and I think that the Raiders are going to stink out loud. And I don't care that Devontae Adams.
I'm kind of on the same page with that entire thing. I think the Chargers will probably sneak in the playoffs, but I do not have good things in store in my mind.
Hey, all they got to do is play for the tie. Just play for the tie, and they make the playoffs.
Right.
Oh, God. One of the worst coaching decisions ever. Oh, where else can we go here? I'm going to go to the U.S. Open and try to correct some of the mess I made yesterday because I was talking about guys in the quarterfinals, and they were actually playing to get in the quarterfinals. So yesterday's results, these guys all headed to the quarterfinals now. Nori gets beat by Rublev yesterday in straight sets, 6-4, 6-4, 6-4, very consistent. I should have led with this. Rafael Nadal, the number 2 seed, gets beat by American Francis Etafio 6-4, 6-4, 6. I should say 6-4, 4-6, 6-4, 6-3. So the number 2 seed goes down to what I heard earlier is the first American to get to the quarterfinals since Andy Roddick. So we'll be rooting for him to keep our status as ugly Americans. Avishka loses to Sinner, the 11th seed Sinner, in 5 sets. These names kill me. I can get this one, I think. Alcaraz beats Killick in 5 sets as well to move on. He's a 3 seed. So some of the top seeds move on except for Rafael Nadal. On the women's side, Pigola beats Kitova in 2 sets, straight sets that would be. Niemeyer loses to Swatka, 6. That's in 3 sets, 6-2, 6-4, 6-love. Victoria Ezrenka beats Karolina Pliskova. Loses to her in 3 sets. And Sabalenka beats Danielle Collins, the American, 6 in 3 sets, 6-3, 6-3, 6-2. That's a lot. So now I can give you the real quarterfinal because Max Girl is still alive. I had her out of this. She'll be playing today. Coco Gauff, the only American left on the women's side, will be playing Caroline Garcia today at 7 p.m. in the quarterfinals at Arthur Ashe Stadium. The other women's quarterfinal today will be Ajay Tomjanovic against Ans Jobar. And in the men's side, we get Matteo Berrettini against Casper Rudd and Nick Kyrgios, who I don't know if he's still facing charges for whatever he was in trouble for during Wimbledon or not, but he'll face Karen Khachanov in the other quarterfinal. Then there'll be 4 other matches on two matches on both sides of the women's and men's side on Wednesday, which we'll get to then. So that's a U.S. Open update today, and correcting some mistakes that I made yesterday. So I apologize for that. What else do we have? Anything, Pegs, in the world of soccer or anything else that we haven't touched on? Mac, anything?
Basketball has made a little bit of headlines, and it's not, well, it is NBA, but not NBA. And it has to deal with the Philadelphia 76ers a little bit, that they are having the Euro basketball tournament right now. There's been a lot that has happened. When Georgia went off against Turkey, and I know a little bit about this, but not necessarily that these two countries do not like each other. The Georgians is like, you think of Georgia, we're not talking Atlanta, Georgia. There's a country called Georgia out there that was, that's like kind of south or east of the Ukraine.
Was part of the old Soviet Union, yeah.
That is correct. They went up against Turkey, and 76er Furkan Korkmaz was ejected from a game, the last game that they played. As he was walking off back to the locker room, he was attacked by Georgian players that were not on the team. They actually are. Wow. I guess they're just on the sideline type thing. They're the extras just in case somebody does get hurt. He was attacked. He was unharmed, but they had to stop the game and have the players go and break it up, and the referees break it up. The Turkish Basketball Federation is appealing to the FIBA, saying that they will withdraw from this tournament if something is not done. That the Georgian team was completely in the wrong here. Now, Georgia did win this game in double overtime. There was a hard foul between Korkmaz and this guy, Duda Sanadiz, and they wound up there was a hard foul, and then Korkmaz headbutted him. So it was a little bit back and forth. He winds up getting asked to leave that game. He gets ejected, and then they come after him after that. The Sixers did not decline comment in this to let these two countries duel it out themselves. But I know the Georgians and the Turkish do not like each other, and that goes back a number of years. I remember seeing that specifically at the, as I bring it up at the World Championship arm wrestling. That you could see some of the disdain for each other at that event.
Mhm.
So this goes way back. This is a lot more to do than just basketball and sports.
Interesting stuff for sure. That same tournament, I know that Giannis was hurt in this tournament, didn't play in his last game. Did the NBA teams, do they have to get waivers to let these guys go play, or they can just do what they want depending on their contracts?
So I think that they have to get permission. I don't know 100% for certain, but I have to imagine that they're not getting paid to do this. Where they are getting paid, this is for home. This is for country.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I would be surprised if we would see Korkmaz in another game this year for the Turkish.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't expect that would be the case. However, I have to imagine they have to get permission from, and I got to imagine, because it's basketball, that these teams will, you get permission, but it's almost like, hey, I'm going to go play. Is that all right? And they say,
Right.
yeah. That you're not really asking permission. You're just telling them that you're going to go play, and they go ahead and okay it. But the moment that there's an injury or anything like that, you're probably removed. In this case here, they're probably going to remove Korkmaz because he is still a member of the 76ers.
Interesting stuff for sure. It's funny, the world of sports seeps into the real world too often, it seems, lately.
Yeah.
So, and then everybody's still talking about, it's been a couple of days, but they're still talking about Mitchell to the Cavs, and not to the Knicks.
Yeah.
But that one story was really the big story in the NBA type thing.
I will say this, and I did a vlog on this last week that talking about the Knicks, and people get wrapped up on whether Mitchell's a good fit, not a good fit. The bigger story here is the fact that Leon Rose can't make this type of deal, can't get it done. This was an important thing, whether you think Mitchell's a good fit or not. He had to get this trade done to show the rest of the NBA general managers that he could be effective in this arena, and to show the fans that they were working on making a big trade. They haven't brought a big name in here since they brought Carmelo in here 10 years ago, and they need it to be able to attract free agents. And the Knicks just cannot get it done. They're never going to get good top free agents in here as long as they can't get good players to be for them to join. And this is Leon Rose on his last leg here.
Keith, LeBron said basically the same thing when he went there for his interview. They said, what do you see as what's going to, what the future is? And he goes, what are you talking about? You're the ones that are supposed to be telling me what it's supposed to look like. So it's been happening there for a long time.
Yeah, and it goes before Leon Rose, obviously, but I thought this was a huge trade for the Knicks to be able to pull off, and if it was over giving up first round draft picks, well, then they made a huge mistake, because they can't make first round draft picks anyway. So what do you got them all for?
Right.
So, and that's why they made the trades on draft night that they made, was to make this trade.
Right.
They didn't get it done. He's a loser, big loser in this thing. So anyway, just a little bit of commentary there, which is neither here nor there. All right. Anything else? Mac, anything else for you want to throw in before we wrap it up here? We got about a minute left.
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything we wanted to cover.
Pegs.
No, I'm good today, since I got to say I got my full time in today.
Well done, showing up on time, Pegs.
Yeah.
Rebounds, comeback player of the day.
Goal
Phillies.
save.
Listen,
Jamie Pegs.
hey, that's what happens when you go to bed a little early.
All right, guys. Good hour. More sports to come tomorrow. Major League Baseball continues. We inch closer to the NFL. Lots of fun stuff going on. No better time for sports in September and October. Keith Engel for Mac and Jamie. Have a great Tuesday, guys.
We'll see you, folks.